You injured human children. Now humanity declares war without mercy. The massive crystalline chamber of the Galactic Council hummed with tension. Admiral Thomas Reynolds stood alone on the central platform, a solitary human figure surrounded by the most powerful beings in the known universe. The chamber stretched upward for hundreds of meters, with tiered seating holding representatives from over 3,000 civilizations. Some looked vaguely humanoid, others were utterly alien. Floating gas clouds contained in specialized environments, crystalline beings that refracted light into dazzling patterns, and massive arthropod creatures that clicked and whistled among themselves. At the highest tier sat the 7 High Counselors, each representing the oldest and most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Their massive thrones were positioned in a perfect arc, looking down upon the human with expressions ranging from curiosity to thinly veiled contempt. "The Council recognizes the human representative," announced High Counselor Vextala, her voice resonating through the chamber despite her small stature. The 8-limbed being's purple carapace gleamed under the chamber's lights. "You stand before us to answer for humanity's unprecedented aggression against the peaceful Ardrelian Empire." Reynolds stood unflinching in his crisp naval uniform. His silver hair and weathered face spoke of decades of service, but nothing in his career had prepared him for this moment. "With respect, High Counselor," he replied, his voice steady but cold, "I'm not here to answer for anything. I'm here to deliver a message." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Such defiance was unheard of, especially from a species as young and supposedly weak as humanity. "The Ardrelians attacked an unarmed human colony vessel," Reynolds continued, activating a holographic display from his wristband. "The ship was called the Aurora. It carried 53 children returning from an educational mission to our outer colonies. 26 of those children died. 19 more suffered injuries they will carry for the rest of their lives." The hologram showed the broken human vessel and the small bodies being recovered from the wreckage. Even among the diverse council members, there was a universal reaction of discomfort. The death of young ones transcended species barriers. Ardrelian Command claimed it was a case of mistaken identity, said Counselor Jatar, a luminous being of pure energy. "They have offered reparations according to established galactic law." Reynolds laughed, a sound utterly without humor that echoed throughout the chamber. "Reparations?" He shook his head. "The Ardrelian warship's logs, which we've recovered, show they identified our vessel as human before firing. They simply didn't care." He turned to face the Ardrelian delegation directly. Their gray-skinned ambassador shifted uncomfortably under his gaze. "What you don't understand, what none of you understand, is what happens when human children are harmed," Reynolds said, his voice dropping to a dangerous quiet that somehow carried to every corner of the vast room. "You believed Earth would follow your protocols, accept your token payments, and move on. You were wrong." The Admiral's wristband projected a new hologram, a massive fleet of warships emerging from a spatial rift, displaying technology the Council had believed impossible for humans to possess. "Humanity isn't declaring war in the way you understand it," Reynolds said, as the Council chamber erupted in chaos. "We're not seeking territory or resources. We don't want negotiations or surrender terms." The High Counselors leaned forward, suddenly alert to the threat before them. "As I speak, human fleets have entered Ardrelian space. We will not stop until every person responsible, from the gunner who fired to the admirals who gave the order to the politicians who created the policy, faces justice." "Not your justice, ours. This is madness," shouted the Ardrelian ambassador, rising from his seat. "You would challenge an empire that spans 17 systems with your primitive technology?" Reynolds smiled, and it was a terrible thing to behold. "You injured our children," he said simply, "and we've spent the last 3 centuries hiding what humanity truly is, what we're capable of. Today that deception ends." He turned back to the Council. "I'm not here seeking permission. I'm here out of courtesy, to explain why the Ardrelian Empire will cease to exist within the next solar cycle. Any civilization that interferes will share their fate." As guards moved toward Reynolds, he pressed a small device on his wrist. His form flickered, revealing he had been a hologram all along, not physically present. "What you're about to witness is what happens when humanity wages war without mercy," his fading image said. "Remember this day. Remember that we warned you. And remember that all we wanted was to be left in peace." As Reynolds' hologram vanished, The chamber's massive screens activated unbidden, showing real-time footage of human warships emerging throughout Ardrelian space, deploying weapons technologies the Council had never seen before. The age of humanity hiding its true nature was over. 2 days earlier, Reynolds had stood in the emergency session of Earth's Unified Defense Council. The room was silent as the final casualty reports from the Aurora came in. 26 confirmed dead, said Defense Minister Liang, her voice tight with controlled fury. 19 critically injured, 8 with minor injuries. President Olivia Reyes stared at the images of the children, the youngest barely 6 years old, displayed on the wall screens. And the Ardrelians? They claim it was a misidentification, Reynolds replied. Their ambassador has offered the standard reparation package under Galactic Council guidelines. Basically the equivalent of a few million credits and a formal apology. General Marcus Daniels slammed his fist on the table. They identified our ship before firing.
The Aurora's black box confirms it.
They knew they were firing on a vessel carrying children. The room fell silent again as the implications sank in. For 300 years, President Reyes said quietly, we have maintained the facade. We've hidden our true technological capabilities, played the role of the developing species just finding our way among the stars. We've accepted unfair trade deals, restrictive colonization rights, and second-class status in the Galactic Council. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. We did this because our first contact with the Zethran showed us that advanced species in this galaxy are systematically suppressed or eliminated if perceived as threats. Our ancestors made the hard choice to hide our true nature for the sake of peaceful integration. Reynolds nodded. The deception has served us well. We've expanded quietly, established colonies throughout our sector, and developed our technology away from prying eyes. But now they've killed our children, said Liang. The question is, do we maintain the deception, or do we show them who we really are? President Reyes stood, her decision made. Admiral Reynolds, you will appear before the Galactic Council. You will inform them of our response, and then you will oversee the operation personally. Reynolds straightened. Operation parameters, Madam President? The complete neutralization of Ardrelian military capability, the capture and trial of all individuals responsible for the attack on the Aurora, and the revelation of humanity's true place in this galaxy. Her eyes flashed with determination. It's time the Council learned what happens when someone harms human children. As Reynolds left to prepare for his Council appearance, he thought of his own grandchildren safe on Earth. The Ardrelians and the Council were about to learn the most dangerous force in the universe wasn't superior technology or massive fleets. It was a species willing to tear down the established order to protect its young. You injured human children. Now humanity declares war without mercy. In the aftermath of Admiral Reynolds' shocking appearance before the Galactic Council, Commander Eliza Morgan stood on the bridge of the UES Retribution, watching as her fleet surrounded the Ardrelian homeworld. The planet's orbital defenses, supposedly impenetrable, had been neutralized within minutes. Through the massive viewscreen, she could see the blue-green world spinning below them. Ardrelius Prime, home to over 12 billion citizens and the seat of an empire that spanned 17 star systems. An empire that had existed for millennia. An empire that had made the fatal mistake of harming human children. Status report, Morgan demanded, her eyes never leaving the tactical display. Their communications network is down, responded Lieutenant Jackson, his fingers moving rapidly across his console. Quantum isolation field is active, they can't call for help. Ground-based defenses are being systematically disabled without civilian casualties. Morgan nodded. The plan was proceeding perfectly. On a secure channel, her second-in-command, Commander Tomas Rivera, approached. Commander, we've located the military leadership bunker. Extraction teams are ready. Proceed, she ordered. Remember, surgical precision. This isn't about punishment. It's about justice. As Rivera moved to relay her orders, Morgan allowed herself a moment of reflection. For 3 centuries, humanity had hidden its true capabilities from the galaxy, presenting a carefully crafted image of a young species still finding its way among the stars. That deception had ended the moment the Ardrelian cruiser had fired on the Aurora. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council had convened an emergency session. The 7 High Counselors watched in stunned silence as reports flooded in from Ardrelian space. Impossible, muttered High Counselor Dravex, his scaled skin paling to a sickly yellow. The humans shouldn't have this level of technology. Our surveys indicated they were at least a century from developing quantum folding or gravitic weapons. They deceived us all, said Counselor Thyrix, mandibles clicking nervously. But why? For what purpose? An aide approached the council table, trembling. Counselors were receiving a transmission from Earth. Not from their fleet, but from their homeworld. The central display activated, revealing an elegant wood-paneled chamber where 5 humans sat behind a long table. At the center was Director Elijah Winters, head of Earth's diplomatic corps. Esteemed counselors, Winters began, his voice measured and calm. For 300 years, humanity has maintained a carefully crafted facade, presenting ourselves as an emerging species still finding our place. Among the stars, images appeared alongside his transmission, human. Ships with capabilities far beyond what they'd ever demonstrated. Research facilities hidden beneath planetary surfaces, and defensive systems that dwarfed anything in the Council's arsenal. This deception was born of necessity, Winters continued. When we first developed faster-than-light travel and encountered the Zethron explorers, we learned quickly that advanced species in this galaxy are systematically suppressed, subjugated, or eliminated if perceived as threats. Several counselors shifted uncomfortably. So we hid. We presented ourselves as technologically immature. We accepted unfavorable trade agreements. We followed your restrictive colonization protocols. We integrated peacefully into galactic society while keeping our true capabilities hidden. Winter's expression hardened. That era ends today. The attack on our children shattered the consensus among our leadership that continued deception was necessary. On the tactical displays monitoring Ardrelian space, Council members watched as human forces moved with impossible precision. Their ships seemed to appear and disappear at will, bypassing defense systems that had protected the Empire for millennia. We don't seek galactic dominance, Winters assured them. We want only what we've always wanted, to exist in peace, to trade fairly, and to be left alone to develop on our own terms. High Counselor Vextala leaned forward. If what you show us is true, why reveal yourselves now? You could have enacted revenge without exposing your deception. Because the children of colony ship Aurora deserve justice delivered in the light, not from the shadows, Winters replied. And because it's time for humanity to stop pretending to be less than we are. As he spoke, screens showed human special forces teams extracting Ardrelian military leaders from their bunker. Not killing them, but taking them prisoner with surgical efficiency. What happens now? Asked Counselor Jatar, her energy form pulsing with what might have been anxiety. Now, said Winters, the Galactic Council has a choice. Accept humanity as we truly are, a technological equal deserving of respect, or consider us the threat you've always feared. Choose carefully. The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in silence, broken only by the continued reports of human forces systematically dismantling the Ardrelian Empire's military infrastructure while leaving civilian populations untouched. They could have done this at any time. Counselor Dravex realized with horror. To any of us, the question hanging in the air remained unspoken. What else were the humans hiding? Back on the Retribution, Commander Morgan received a priority communication from Earth. Commander, this is President Reyes. We're receiving requests for information from 23 species who claim to have suffered similar accidents involving their own children or colony ships. The Ardrelian attack may not have been an isolated incident. Morgan frowned. You think this was systematic? We've dispatched teams to examine the Ardrelian Central Archives, the President replied. Director Winters believes we may have stumbled onto something much larger than a single act of aggression. Understood. We'll maintain control of the planet until the investigation is complete. As the communication ended, Lieutenant Jackson called out from his station. Commander, our teams have breached the Science Directorate's secure database. They're finding disturbing information. Morgan moved to his side. Show me. Jackson displayed a series of translated documents on his screen. Morgan read them with growing horror. This wasn't a military action, she said quietly. It was an experiment. They deliberately targeted the Aurora because it carried children. They wanted to study our response. Rivera joined them, his face grim. There's more. According to these files, the Ardralians have been conducting similar tests on multiple species over the past 50 years, always targeting ships carrying young, always disguised as military accidents or pirate attacks. Morgan straightened, her decision made. Secure all Science Directorate personnel and facilities. Lock down their archives, nothing gets deleted, nothing gets destroyed. And find the director of this project. Now. On Earth, as reports of the Ardrelian experiments began to filter in, the full scope of what they'd uncovered became clear. President Reyes convened an emergency meeting with the Defense Council. It wasn't just the Ardrelians, Defense Minister Liang explained, displaying the evidence on the conference room screens. They were conducting these experiments on behalf of someone else. Someone high in the council hierarchy. Admiral Reynolds, now returned from his holographic appearance before the council, looked grim. How high? The highest, Liang replied. 3 of the 7 high counselors authorized and funded this research. They've been systematically testing the responses of potentially threatening species to attacks on their young. President Reyes closed her eyes briefly, absorbing the horror of the revelation. And the purpose? Biological warfare, said Reynolds. They were developing species-specific weapons designed to target reproductive capabilities. The Ardrelian experiments were just the first phase, studying emotional and social responses to prepare for the second phase. Which was? Reyes asked, though her expression suggested she already knew. Extinction, Liang said simply, starting with humanity. We were scheduled for elimination within 6 months. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Finally, President Reyes spoke. We revealed our military capabilities because they harmed our children. Now we discover they were planning to destroy our entire species. She looked around at her advisors. Recommendations? Admiral Reynolds leaned forward. Madam President, I believe it's time to implement the Prometheus Protocol. Not just a partial reveal of our capabilities, but a full disclosure. Defense Minister Liang nodded in agreement. And we should reach out to the other targeted species. Form a coalition. There's strength in numbers, especially now that the Council is fracturing. The risk is considerable, cautioned Director Winters. Some species may see us as an even greater threat once they know what we're truly capable of. President Reyes stood. The greater risk is maintaining secrecy when our enemies already know enough to target us. Admiral Reynolds, you are authorized to implement Prometheus Protocol. Director Winters, establish communication with all species targeted by the Ardrelian experiments. Minister Liang, prepare our defenses for potential council retaliation. As the meeting disbanded, Reynolds paused beside the president. It began with justice for our children, he said quietly, but it may end with the complete restructuring of galactic politics. You injured human children. Now humanity declares war without mercy. Deep within the captured Ardrelian Central Command Complex, Dr. Marcus Reed studied the data flowing across his screens with growing rage. As head of Earth's Xenobiology Division, he had been brought to personally assess what had happened to the children aboard the Aurora, the underground facility hummed with activity as human teams systematically downloaded and analyzed every piece of information they could find. The walls, covered in strange symbols and flickering displays, cast an eerie blue glow over Reed's face as he pieced together the truth. It wasn't a mistake, he said quietly to General Diane Frost, who stood beside him. They deliberately targeted a vessel with human children. Frost's expression remained neutral, but her eyes betrayed her fury. Explain. Reed pulled up the recovered Ardrelian communications. The alien text scrolled across his screen before the translation algorithm converted it to English. This was ordered by Science Director Calvor himself, Reed explained, highlighting key passages. The Aurora wasn't attacked despite having children aboard. It was attacked because it had children aboard. He projected a translated directive onto the larger display screen that turned Frost's face ashen. Project Ascendancy. Test human emotional responses to offspring casualties. Determine exploitable weaknesses in human protective instincts. Minimal sample size required, 20 specimens. They were experimenting on us, Frost said, her voice barely a whisper. Testing our reactions. There's more, Reed continued, bringing up further files. The Ardrelian Science Directorate has been conducting similar experiments on 17 other species. Always targeting the young, always disguised as military accidents or pirate attacks. Frost's hands clenched into fists.
How long?
Decades, Reed replied. At least 50 years, possibly longer. The earliest records we found date back to experiments on the Thessians in 2274. And the purpose? Reed displayed another file. Preparation for what they call species management. They've been categorizing civilizations as either stable or potentially destabilizing. Any species showing rapid technological advancement or population growth gets placed in the latter category. Let me guess, Frost said. We're potentially destabilizing, Reed nodded grimly. We're at the top of their list, but we're not alone. Across the galaxy, the Galactic Council chamber had descended into chaos. Multiple species were demanding investigations into suspicious accidents involving their own colonization ships over the past decades. High Counselor Vex Tala struggled to maintain order. Her voice amplified throughout the chamber. We have no evidence connecting these incidents. She was interrupted by the chamber doors opening. Admiral Reynolds walked in, physically present this time, flanked by 2 officers escorting a bound Ardrelian in elaborate robes. Science Director Calvor, Reynolds announced. The architect of Project Ascendancy, and personally responsible for the deaths of thousands of offspring from multiple species, including humans. The chamber fell, silent as Reynolds approached the central platform. We've transmitted all evidence of the Ardrelian experiments to every member, species of the Council, Reynolds stated. This wasn't an isolated incident against humans. This was systematic biological warfare research, conducted with the knowledge of the highest levels of Ardrelian government. Calvor finally spoke, his translator converting his clicks and whistles to the common galactic language. You primitives understand nothing. The strong must study the weak. It is the natural order. And who determined you were the strong? Reynolds asked quietly. The Thessian representative, a crystalline being that glittered under the chamber lights, moved forward. My species lost a colony ship 30 cycles ago. We were told it was a navigation error. 17 of your young ones were aboard, Calvor replied, mandibles clicking in what might have been amusement. Their responses were most interesting. Before anyone could react, the Thessian emitted a burst of energy that shattered the restraints holding Calvor. Guards rushed forward, but the damage was done. The Ardrelian scientist collapsed. His internal organs crystallized. Justice, the Thessian stated simply, returning to its place. No one moved to stop it. On Earth, Director Winters was meeting with the Unified Earth Government Security Council in their underground chamber beneath Geneva. The situation has escalated beyond the Ardrelians. Winters informed the 12 representatives. Multiple species are discovering they were targeted by Project Ascendancy. The Galactic Council is fracturing along lines of those who suspected and those who were victimized. President Helena Rivera leaned forward. And where do we stand? At a crossroads, Winters replied. We've revealed more of our capabilities than intended. Some see us as liberators exposing a terrible conspiracy. Others see us as an emerging threat that has been deceiving the galaxy for centuries. Your recommendation? Winters didn't hesitate. Complete transparency moving forward, but maintain our military advantage. Our intelligence suggests at least 3 council members were aware of the Ardrelian experiments. Which ones? Ask the representative from the Asian Alliance. High Counselors Vextala, Dravex, and Ornex, Winters replied. We have evidence they not only knew about the experiments but actively encouraged them. They've been planning a coordinated response to what they call emerging threats for centuries. The Security Council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. How many species were targeted? Rivera finally asked. 42 that we've identified so far, Winters said. All showing rapid technological development or unusual capabilities. All potential rivals to the established power structure. Rivera's expression hardened. And the endgame of these experiments? Extinction, Winters replied simply. Once they understood each species' vulnerabilities, they planned to deploy tailored biological weapons simultaneously across multiple worlds. Humanity was scheduled for elimination within 6 months. Back in Ardrelian space, Commander Morgan had discovered something disturbing in the Science Directorate's secure archives. The Ardrelians weren't working alone, she told Reed over a secure channel. They were providing research results to someone else. Someone high in the council hierarchy. Reed's expression darkened. How high? The highest, Morgan replied. And there's more. Project Ascendancy wasn't just about studying emotional responses. They were looking for weaknesses to exploit for a planned extinction event. Humanity was next on their list for elimination, scheduled to begin within 6 months. As she spoke, alarms blared across her ship. Lieutenant Jackson rushed to her side. "Commander!" Multiple spatial rifts opening around the planet. Signatures match Council Enforcement Division warships. Morgan's eyes narrowed. "Whose authorization?" "High Counselor Vextala," Jackson replied. "They're demanding our immediate surrender and withdrawal." Morgan smiled grimly. "Interesting timing. Almost as if someone is desperate to hide evidence." She opened a channel to Earth. "This was never just about justice for our children, was it? We've stumbled onto something much bigger." President Rivera's response was calm but resolute. "The deception ends today, Commander. All of it. Activate Prometheus Protocol." Throughout human space, hidden installations powered up as humanity prepared to reveal not just some of their technological capabilities, but all of them. In the medical bay of the Retribution, Dr. Reed sat beside one of the Aurora survivors, a 7-year-old girl named Lily who had lost both parents in the attack. Her injuries had been severe, but advanced human medical technology, previously kept hidden, was repairing the damage. "Will they hurt any more children?" Lily asked, her voice small but steady. Reed took her hand. "No, Lily, we're making sure of that. No one will hurt any more children, human or otherwise." "Good," she said simply. "My mom always said hurting kids is the worst thing anyone can do." "Your mother was right," Reed replied, fighting to keep his voice steady. "Is that why everyone's so angry?" Lily asked. "Because they hurt us kids?" Reed nodded. "Yes, there are some lines that should never be crossed. Harming children is one of them. What happens now?" Reed considered his answer carefully. "Now we make sure the people who did this can't hurt anyone else. And we help all the other people who were hurt just like you were." "Like making friends?" Lily asked. Despite everything, Reed smiled. "Yes, like making friends. Very powerful friends." As he left the medical bay, Reed received a priority communication from Commander Morgan. The Council fleet was holding position, but not retreating. A standoff had developed. "They're buying time," Morgan told him. "Our intelligence suggests they're purging archives throughout Council space, eliminating evidence of their complicity." "They can't hide this," Reed replied. "Too many species have been affected. The truth is spreading faster than they can contain it." "There's more," Morgan said, her expression grave. "We've detected unusual energy signatures from deep space beyond the edge of mapped territory. Something big is powering up out there. Their backup plan," Reed realized. "If they can't maintain control through political means, they'll use force," Morgan finished. "Prepare for immediate transfer to Earth. President Rivera is convening an emergency summit with representatives from all targeted species. Your biological expertise will be crucial if we're dealing with weapons designed for multiple species. Shook you injured human children. Now humanity declares war without mercy." The Galactic Council's majestic chamber had become a battleground of accusations and counter-accusations. 2 days after the humans had exposed Project Ascendancy, 3 council races had confirmed their own children had been targeted in similar accidents. The once orderly tiered seating had dissolved into faction-based groupings. Representatives huddled together, sharing information and forming alliances based on whether they had been victims or beneficiaries of the established order. High Counselor Jitar's energy form pulsed with barely contained fury, casting erratic shadows across the chamber. "For centuries, we have trusted this council to maintain peace and justice throughout the galaxy. Now we learn some among us have been complicit in atrocities against our most vulnerable." High Counselor Vexitala remained composed, her 8 limbs perfectly still. "These are human fabrications. They seek to divide us, to weaken the Council's authority after their outrageous military action against a sovereign member state." "The evidence speaks for itself," countered Counselor Thrix, whose own species had lost a colony ship to an unfortunate navigational error 3 cycles earlier. And the humans could have simply destroyed the Ardrelians. Instead, they captured those responsible and exposed the truth. As the debate raged, more reports flooded in. 27 species had now confirmed suspicious incidents involving their offspring or colonies. The pattern was unmistakable. "This council has failed in its most basic duty," announced the Larillian representative, a being composed of interwoven vines and flowers. It has not only failed to protect its members but actively conspired against them. In orbit around Earth, an unprecedented gathering was taking place. Ships from 26 species, all who had confirmed being targeted by Project Ascendancy, had arrived to form a coalition with humanity. Aboard the diplomatic vessel Concordia, Ambassador Jackson Reed addressed the assembled representatives. The ship's massive conference chamber had been adapted to accommodate beings from environments ranging from methane atmospheres to high-gravity worlds. For too long, the Council has operated under the pretense of equality, while a select few maintained dominance through fear and manipulation, Reed began. Project Ascendancy was merely the latest tool to keep emerging species in check. A Thessian delegate, their crystalline form glittering under the ship's lights, spoke. "We believed ourselves alone in being targeted. If we had known others suffered similarly..." "Division was their strategy," Reed affirmed, "but unity will be our response." The Novan representative, a being of living metal, raised a gleaming appendage. "Humanity concealed its true capabilities for centuries. How do we know you don't have your own agenda for galactic dominance?" Reed nodded, acknowledging the concern. "A fair question. We hid our capabilities out of fear, having witnessed the suppression of other advanced species. But we never used that deception to harm others or to manipulate galactic politics." He gestured to the view screen showing Earth below. "We want only what everyone in this room wants. Safety for our people, respect for our sovereignty, and the right to develop without fear of extinction, because we might someday become too successful." Meanwhile, Commander Morgan's fleet faced off against Council enforcement vessels in Ardrelian space. Neither side had fired, but the standoff was growing tenser by the hour. "They're trying to buy time," Morgan told her officers as they gathered in the Retribution strategy room. "Intelligence suggests they're purging archives throughout Council space, eliminating evidence of their complicity." Her tactical officer looked up from his station. "Commander, we've detected quantum communication between the Council fleet and a location in unexplored space. Massive energy signatures unlike anything in our database." Morgan frowned. "Send a reconnaissance drone, and prepare to execute Prometheus Phase 2 on my command." On Earth, Dr. Reed had made a breakthrough analyzing the Ardrelian data. He burst into President Rivera's office, security protocols overridden by his emergency clearance. "Madam President, Project Ascendancy wasn't just research," he said breathlessly. It was preparation. The highest levels of the Council, specifically High Councilors Vextala, Dravex, and Ornex, have been planning a massive purge of what they classify as destabilizing species. Humanity tops the list, but there are 42 others. Rivera's expression remained grim. "Evidence?" Reed projected a classified Council directive recovered from Calvor's personal files, outlining a staged series of natural disasters and terrorist incidents designed to eliminate troublesome species without implicating the Council. "The first phase was scheduled to begin against Earth in 3 months," Reed continued. "An engineered pathogen targeting human-specific genetic markers to be released simultaneously in 50 major population centers." Rivera activated her secure communication channel. "Director Winters, implement Shadowbreak protocol immediately and inform our new coalition partners. They need to check their worlds for similar preparations." Across the galaxy, the Council chamber session had devolved further when Admiral Reynolds returned, accompanied by representatives from the 26 coalition species. "This Council stands accused of conspiracy to commit genocide," Reynolds announced, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We demand the immediate suspension of High Councilors Vextala, Dravex, and Ornex pending investigation." Vextala's carapace darkened with rage. "You have no authority here, human. Your actions constitute insurrection against the established order of the galaxy." "Perhaps that order deserves to be challenged," replied the Thessian representative, "when it sanctions the murder of children to maintain power." As tensions reached their peak, Commander Morgan's reconnaissance drone transmitted its findings from deep space. What it revealed shocked even Earth's military leadership. A massive installation hiding behind a quantum field, containing weapons platforms capable of sterilizing entire planetary systems. "This was never about research or maintaining balance," Morgan whispered, as she viewed the images. "This was about extermination on a scale beyond comprehension." She opened a channel to Earth. Madam President, we've found their failsafe. If the Council loses control, they intended to eliminate every potential threat species simultaneously. President Rivera's response was immediate. Execute Prometheus Phase 2. Reveal everything. Throughout Council space, hidden human observers activated long-dormant systems. Every communication channel, every data network, every information terminal simultaneously broadcast the truth. Complete records of the Council's secret directives, the full scope of Project Ascendancy, and the existence of the Extinction Facility. In the Council chamber, screens activated without authorization, showing the evidence to every representative present. The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some species representatives physically attacked those implicated in the conspiracy. Others withdrew in shock. High Counselor Dravex attempted to flee but was restrained by his own security detail, who had seen enough to question their loyalties. This body has been corrupted beyond redemption, declared a representative of the Zilari, an ancient species known for their neutrality in galactic affairs. The founding principles of the Council have been betrayed by those sworn to uphold them. Admiral Reynolds watched the chaos with a grim expression. This wasn't the outcome he had wanted, but it was necessary. The rot at the heart of galactic governance had to be exposed before it could be excised. "What happens now?" asked the Thessian representative, moving to Reynolds' side. "Now we prevent them from using that extinction facility," Reynolds replied. "And then we build something better than what came before." On the Retribution, Commander Morgan received new orders directly from President Rivera. "Commander, you are to proceed immediately to the coordinates of the extinction facility. You'll rendezvous with ships from the Coalition. Your mission is to secure the facility intact. We need evidence of what they were planning." "Understood, Madam President. And if we encounter resistance? Then you have authorization to use all necessary force. But remember, we're fighting for justice, not revenge. Don't become what we're fighting against." As Morgan's fleet prepared to depart, she received an unexpected communication from High Counselor Jatar. "Commander Morgan, I speak now not as a council member, but as one who is blind to the corruption within our ranks. I request permission to join your mission to the facility." Morgan considered the request. "For what purpose, Counselor?" "To bear witness," Jatar replied. "What was done in the name of the Council must be seen by those who believed in its principles. Only then can we hope to rebuild trust." After consulting with Earth, Morgan agreed. Jatar's ship joined the growing Coalition fleet as they prepared to depart for the extinction facility. As they made final preparations, Dr. Reed approached Morgan on the bridge. "Commander, I've completed analysis of the biological weapons they were developing. They're unlike anything I've seen before. Genetically targeted, species-specific, designed to cause maximum suffering before death." Morgan's expression hardened. "Could they be repurposed against other species?" "With modification, yes. Which is why we can't destroy the facility. We need to understand exactly what they created to ensure it can never be used." "You injured human children. Now humanity declares war without mercy." The massive extinction facility hung in the void between stars. Its weapon arrays now powered down and surrounded by ships from 32 species. 3 days had passed since humanity had exposed the full extent of the Council's conspiracy, and the galaxy's political landscape had been irrevocably transformed. The facility itself was a marvel of engineering, a structure the size of a small moon, containing thousands of specialized weapons designed to target specific species across vast distances. Its very existence was proof of the Council leadership's true intentions. Aboard the UES Retribution, Commander Morgan supervised the final security sweeps of the facility. "Confirm all fail-safes are neutralized," she ordered. "Confirmed, Commander," replied her chief engineer. "The targeting systems have been completely disabled. This facility will never threaten another world." Morgan nodded, allowing herself to feel a moment of relief. When they had arrived, they'd discovered 3 High Counselors attempting to activate the facility's weapons. The ensuing battle had been brief but intense. Now those counselors were in custody, awaiting trial for crimes against multiple species. In the Galactic Council chamber, the largest assembly in recorded history was underway. Over 2,000 species were represented, most attending remotely through quantum projections. The 7 High Council seats remained empty, 3 occupied by the conspirators now in custody. 4 vacant after their occupants had resigned in acknowledgement of their failure to prevent the conspiracy. Admiral Reynolds stood on the central platform beside Director Winters and representatives from the coalition species. For millennia, this council operated on principles of fear rather than cooperation. Winters addressed the assembly. A select few maintained power by systematically suppressing any species that might one day challenge them. Project Ascendancy was merely the most recent manifestation of this doctrine. He gestured to the coalition representatives. Humanity could have simply withdrawn from galactic society after discovering this truth. We could have retreated behind our defensive capabilities, which, as you now know, far exceed what we previously revealed. The holographic displays showed the full extent of human technology, quantum fold drives that allowed instantaneous travel across the galaxy, gravity manipulation systems capable of moving planets, energy weapons that could target with surgical precision across light years. Instead, we choose a different path, Winters continued. Not isolation, not retaliation, but transformation. The old council is dissolved. In its place, we propose the Galactic Concordat, a truly equal alliance where no species holds dominance over others, where technological advancement is not punished but celebrated, and where the strong protect the vulnerable rather than exploit them. Throughout human-controlled space, evidence of the centuries-long deception was being revealed. Hidden shipyards emerged from gas giants. Research facilities phased into normal space from quantum pockets. Defense installations previously disguised as mundane satellites or asteroids revealed their true nature. On Earth, President Rivera addressed her planet's population. 300 years ago, our ancestors made the difficult choice to hide humanity's true potential after encountering a galaxy ruled by fear. Today, we emerge from those shadows, not as conquerors but as catalysts for change. She paused, her expression solemn. The price of this revelation was tragically high. 53 children aboard the Aurora paid with their innocence and their lives. But their sacrifice has exposed a system that has claimed countless victims across thousands of species over millennia. Their memory will be honored in the new galactic order we build together. In Ardrelian space, Dr. Reed supervised the treatment of the surviving Aurora children. Advanced medical technology, previously kept secret, was repairing damage once thought permanent. 8-year-old Daniel, one of the most severely injured survivors, looked up at Reed with newly restored eyes. "Are the bad aliens going to hurt anyone else?" he asked. Reed knelt beside the boy's bed. "No, Daniel. They won't hurt anyone else. And something good has come from this terrible thing. Many different peoples from all over the galaxy are working together now to make sure nothing like this happens again." The child considered this. "So we made friends?" Reed smiled gently. "More friends than we ever imagined possible." In the detention center where the Ardrelian leadership and complicit council members were held, Admiral Reynolds made a final visit to Science Director Calvor. "You still don't understand what you've done, do you?" Reynolds asked. Calvor's translator conveyed his dismissive tone. "We underestimated your technology, yes. A miscalculation that will be studied by future strategists." Reynolds shook his head. "That wasn't your mistake. Your error was more fundamental. You believed that targeting our children would weaken us, make us vulnerable. Instead, it united not just humanity, but half the galaxy against you." He leaned closer to the containment field. "You never understood the most basic truth about humans. We can forgive many things, but harm our children, and we will remake the entire universe to ensure it never happens again." As Reynolds left, he received a notification. The vote on the Galactic Concordat had concluded. With overwhelming support from thousands of species, a new era had begun. 1 month later, a memorial was unveiled on the reconstructed colony ship Aurora, now permanently stationed in Earth orbit as a museum and educational center. Representatives from over 500 species attended, many bringing their own children in a powerful symbol of the new galactic values. Director Winters, recently appointed as Earth's representative to the Concordat's Advisory Council, stood before the gathering. "The children of the Aurora will never be forgotten," he said, his voice carrying across the assembly. "Their tragedy revealed a darkness that had persisted for too long. But from that darkness we have forged a new light, a galaxy where children of all species will grow up knowing not fear, but wonder. Not suspicion, but curiosity. Not isolation, but connection. He gestured to the stars visible through the ship's transparent dome. This is humanity's true gift to the galaxy, not our technology, not our military strength, but our unwavering belief that the universe can be better tomorrow than it is today. That belief, tested in fire and tragedy, has transformed not just our future, but the future of all sentient life. As the ceremony concluded, ships from dozens of species performed a synchronized, light display around Earth, a new tradition to honor the fallen and celebrate the unprecedented peace that had emerged from humanity's most painful moment. Back on the Retribution, now stationed near the former extinction facility that was being converted into the Concordate's headquarters, Commander Morgan stood with her senior officers. Hard to believe it's been only 6 weeks since the attack on the Aurora, Lieutenant Jackson commented. It feels like everything has changed. Because it has, Morgan replied. For 3 centuries we hid what we were capable of. Now we're helping other species achieve what we already had. Was it worth it? Asked Commander Rivera. The deception, I mean. 300 years of pretending to be less than we are. Morgan considered the question. It gave us time to develop, to establish ourselves without being seen as a threat. But it also allowed the Council's corruption to fester unchallenged. She turned to look at the view screen, which showed ships from dozens of species working together to transform the facility of death into a center for cooperation. What matters now is what we build from here, she said. The Aurora children didn't die in vain. Their sacrifice exposed a terrible truth and created an opportunity for something better. On Earth, Dr. Reed had returned to his research facility, now working openly with scientists from 20 other species on medical technologies that would benefit all. His assistant entered his office. Doctor, the Thessian delegation has arrived with their biologists. They're eager to begin collaboration on the regenerative therapies. Reed nodded. Show them in, and make sure the Novan team joins us. Their expertise in metallic-based biology will be crucial. As the diverse group of scientists gathered, Reed reflected on how quickly everything had changed. 6 weeks ago, these species had been strangers, some even potential enemies. Now they worked side by side, sharing knowledge that had been hidden for centuries. In Geneva, President Rivera met with Admiral Reynolds and Director Winters to discuss the transition to the new galactic reality. The Concordate Charter has been ratified by over 1,500 species, Winters reported. Even former Council loyalists are joining, now that they've seen the evidence of what their leadership was planning. And the conspirators? Rivera asked. Their trial begins next week, Reynolds replied. Representatives from all affected species will participate in the proceedings. It will be the first truly multi-species judicial process in galactic history. Rivera nodded. And the Aurora survivors? Recovering well, said Winters. The Thessians have offered their crystalline regeneration technology to help those with the most severe injuries. It's remarkable how quickly former adversaries have become allies when the truth was revealed. It all came at a high cost, Rivera said quietly.